Could everybody see my screen? PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
All good.
Excellent. All right, so we'll get started. Just to give you a bit of an overview of what we're going to be covering in the session today, so we're just going to look at some of the background information on how the assessment templates come about, the timeline for the implementation, what the differences are between the version 2 and the version 3 assessments. So the ones that we'll be showing you today are the version 3, and version 2 are the ones that are currently sitting on the intranet site under the compliance, where to find the assessment templates, the version 3 templates, where to find the completed assessments, also the standardised naming conventions and acronyms. We're going to talk about the transition period and also continuous improvement. So just some background information. Throughout the process and between myself, David and Alison, we've been working with some skill points, and we identified that there was a need to update the version 2 templates, and hence we've evolved into the version 3 that we'll go through in a moment. There was an opportunity for us to identify some strategies where we could streamline these templates and working towards the one TAFE system, and having a systematic approach in gathering feedback. So we also consulted with an assessment team which comprised of regional DIP teams. I know there was some of the TAFE digital people there as well, and some skill points. So there was some, extensive consultation. The Project 83 assessments will be available in the new assessment templates, which we will show you throughout this presentation. And these information sessions are part of the communication strategy. So we're delivering them this week and next to the regions. We've already done a segment to the skill points, so that's part of the communication strategy. So with the timelines, from the 3rd of September, which was Monday, we started our information sessions, and with the DIP teams. From the 17th of September, about 2 weeks' time, the version 3 assessment templates will be available to the regions to use. On the 24th, the version 2 assessment templates will be removed from the intranet. So if you've noticed on the intranet site, there is a disclaimer to say that after the 24th, they will no longer be there. And that's where the version 3 will come in effect from the 17th onwards. October to December, the assessment templates that are available for use for semester 1, the non-Project 83 courses, and from November, the Project 83 course assessments will become available for use for semester 1. So what we're anticipating in July 2019, that the version 3 assessment templates will be used throughout all the courses. So the semester 1 is kind of still a little bit of, can be a transition period, but from semester 2 onwards, it should really be completed to the version 3 assessment templates. So just to highlight some of the differences in the assessment template. So you see there on the right-hand side, I've just listed the assessment templates. I know there's a few other documents on the intranet, but we're just talking about the assessment templates, and these are the ones that are listed there. So with these version 2 templates, the student assessments, there were 3 types. So there was project, skill, and a knowledge assessment. The individual student assessments also had individual documentation, such as a separate student declaration form. There was a separate submission cover sheet, and there's a separate student unit result summary. The marking templates in this version were more aligned to marking the student's assessments and providing feedback to the student. With the work that we did on the version 3 templates, again on the right hand side you'll see the list of the different templates that we have put together, and what we've done is that the student assessments, we now have 4 different types. So we still have the knowledge, we still have the project, we still have the skill, but we've included a case study. assessment. So there's 4 different types. We've incorporated the student assessment to include a student declaration in the front and the feedback form in the back. So the assessment kit has those already incorporated. So we've reduced it from 3 different templates into the one. The trainer and assessor marking guide is very much speaking to the trainer and assessor, and the requirement is that it needs to have model answers. So it's no longer to be used as a marking tool, but rather to have the model answers that are applicable to grading the student assessment. We've also included for each one of the assessment templates a support document, and that support document is there to offer guidance. So within that support document, it is designed to assist in completing the student assessment. So there's tips and hints on what to write, how it should be worded, the type of information that needs to be added to the particular areas within the templates. We've also added in each of the templates further instruction that is over and above what is in the student document, and we've also added at least 2 to 3 different assessment methods just to assist further the process in development of the assessments and to offer some guidance as to possible methods of assessments that can be used for each of the particular assessments. There's also further detail within each template, so you have information in the support document, but also within each of the templates in the marking guide and also the assessments, further information on how to complete them. The assessment templates for version 3, we actually released them on the 27th of August. And as I mentioned, our first information sessions were with different skill points, and they're now available in 2 different types of documents. So they're in Word documents in the Learning Bank, and they are also available in Data Docs. Dave, did you want to take over this part?
Yeah, thank you, Lucia. So I might share my screen, Lucia, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll just wait for that to happen. Yeah, so thank you everybody for your interest. We realise, of course, these documents have primarily been developed for all of the business in the context of Word documents, and we realise that you do have electronic, you have an LMS, but probably the basis of the way the assessment templates work will be able to contextualise to your purpose. I'll just share my screen now. Lucia, would you mind stop sharing yours just for a moment, please? And I'm just going to dive into the Learning Bank and Data Docs, which I know some of you will be aware of Data Docs, and I realise there are other tools as well, but these are the 2 platforms that this round of assessment templates will be deployed on. So I'll just dive into Aquila, and by the way, Tracy Collins will give a whole bunch more detail on the Learning Bank when we get to that part of the presentation. And I suppose before I go on, I might just ask, were there any questions for Lucia? We've been delivering this in half an hour, which is extremely short, so we hadn't sort of stopped to breathe in previous presentations. But if anybody had any questions now before I move on to this component for Lucia, we're quite happy to take those questions now, or you can also put questions in the chat. So I'll just give everybody a moment to see if they did have questions for Lucia before I move on.
This is Kwan. Just wanted to find out about the timeline that Lucia talked about earlier. Is that for assessments forward, not the assessments that has already been done, isn't it? The templates would be used for the new assessments that will come online.
That's correct. Moving forward, so anything that's related to the Project 83, of course, that's a priority. And these assessment templates, the version 3, is what should be used. If it's not a Project 83 course and it's already in development, then we suggest you keep using what you're using for that, but it's definitely for those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, because if there's any more questions, just interrupt me, basically. I've just logged into the Learning Bank, and you guys probably will be aware of the changes, and Tracy will speak to it. The wonderful changes actually have been made to the Learning Bank, and as you realise, they're based sort of on the skills points, on the skills point, collections. There's a button down, when you scroll down a little bit, there's a button that takes you to the TAFE New South Wales templates. This is where the current Word versions of the assessment templates now live in this collection, and Tracy will speak more eloquently than me about this. But the idea is that the assessments that Lucia talked about are all here in the collection, and they're bundled into a group of documents that you can download, basically. So you can either click on the download the files buttons and bundle them all up into a zip file, or of course download the individual documents. I won't talk to the documents, but basically there's the blank Word documents that have no TGA data in them, and there's the PDF support documents that explain how to use those documents. I won't talk anymore on Aquila for now. I will leave that to Tracy. But the primary difference between the Learning Bank documents, the Word documents, and the ones we're going to look at now, the data docs, are that the Aquila documents are basically blank in the context of that you need to manually enter in Word the unit and code and performance criteria, all that stuff, depending on what the document type is, into the Word document. Whereas Aquila, and by the way, so we'll share this slide pack with you guys as well. So all the links to this information is available directly from this slide pack. Whereas Data works quite differently. Data, I'll just do an example while I'm talking. Data allows you to pre-populate within the assessment templates all the relevant, depending on what the document type is, all the relevant TGA data. So I've just put in a business course there, you'll see for a moment, and as of yesterday, there's an ability now, if I wanted to gather all the information on all these documents related to this qualification, I can just download a zip file that will have all that information in there. I'll just the other thing I'll just briefly mention as well is that there's always a link when you enter the data. There's a link to the TGA link, to the information around the qual and the units. Also from Data is available the Master TAS and the Course Assessment Guide. So I'll just open one of the documents for an example, and the other thing I'll mention about this is on the right-hand side, there's also the PDF documents that explain each of these documents. So as I said, all that, if you wanted to get it all in one hit, you can just download as a zip file all the information. I'll just click on one of the documents to show how it works. If I was to, for example, excuse me, sorry, just had to cough. If I was to download one of those documents, the TGA data will be automatically injected into the Word document. So if I was using the Learning Bank document, all this information I would put in manually, whereas using the data doc, all this information is pre-populated in the Word document. I'm just going back to the slide for a moment, and of course, as always, any questions you had while I was talking. So I might stop there because we've still got a bit to cover, but that's primarily the difference between the Learning Bank documents and the data documents, the TGA data being injected into the documents. I'll just talk to this slide and then I'll pass over. Something to be aware of with Data, as is I'm aware with TAFE Digital as well, TAFE Digital platform. Please use either Chrome or Safari when you're using either the Learning Bank or Data. It just works, as you be aware of the TAFE Digital platform as well. It works. Those browsers work better than Internet Explorer. Just with the Data Web Service, the injection of the TGA data into the Word documents, there are occasionally issues with the transfer of the data from TGA into the documents, and that's around some issues, some technical issues in the XML in the TGA database, and sometimes when you open a Word document from Data, you'll find that there may be some errors we've found, particularly in the old units in the foundation skills. There could be potentially errors in other places, so all we actually need to do is when you download the bundle, to also open the TGA from the Data Docs TGA link, open the TGA information and just do a brief a check to make sure that the data has transferred correctly, and in the mapping documents pay particular notice to the foundation skills. There may be errors there. If you do find any issues either with data, the web service itself, so if there's some sort of technical issue with the service at any time, or with the integrity of the TGA data that's transferred in the background into the Word documents, can you please log those matters on this ticketing system? It's just our standard TAFE New South Wales ticketing system, and then that information will be passed back to the development teams, and we can keep track and prioritise the updating of the data system. I won't talk in any detail because I'm going to hand over to Tracy now, and of course take any questions first. But I have been talking to Carl and your teams around some future forward stuff. So in other words, some improvement and some integration in the longer term with your digital learning platform and systems. In this current release, right now the assessment documentation is in these two formats, the Word formats in the Learning Bank and in the Datadocs formats. But just so you know, there will be work, continuing work looking at improving that now and basically doing some more digitisation of the workflows. It was just for a heads up. So I'll stop talking now and allow anybody to ask any questions they had about that before I move on. And then if there are no questions, I'll hand over to Tracy and ask Tracy to take us through the next part of the presentation.
That looks great, David. Question, Datadocs document, so if anyone can open it as long as you have the browser, Safari or Chrome, yeah?
That's correct. Sorry, and I should explain, anybody who's in the staff Active Directory, so only TAFE New South Wales staff. So anybody who has an Active Directory account with TAFE New South Wales as a staff will be able to use the data service. I'll just briefly explain too, we're only presenting at this point these assessment templates, but data will also be used to deliver an RPL kit shortly and some other functionality, but that's out of the scope of this presentation. But yep, you can all access data directly from the link that's provided in this slide. Any more questions? Sure. Otherwise, I might hand over to Tracy and ask Tracy to. Tracy, did you want to share your screen, by the way, or do you want me to?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave, and hi, everybody. So my name's Tracy Collins, and I am the manager of the Learning Bank. So my responsibility is to ensure that the resources that are produced by Skills Points and the TAFE Digital Design team are actually made available for staff and students to be able to access. So as Dave mentioned, we've done a fair bit of work already in reconfiguring and rebranding the old Aquella to now be the Learning Bank. And so what I wanted to cover just briefly today was a bit of an overview of how you can find resources in the Learning Bank. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't actually have any live Skills Point approved resources to show you, but I have got some samples that I can run through just so you can see what they'll look like. So probably initially, just I'll switch over to the live instance of the Learning Bank. But what I just wanted to show you is the number of different ways that you can search for resources within the Learning Bank. And in particular, to highlight the messaging that we have put into the Learning Bank to, I suppose, support staff who are looking for resources to know whether they have found the Skills Point approved resources or if they've found resources that were released by previous RTO, teachers or other staff. So you'll notice on that slide that there's some green text there that the resources are approved by Skills Points. And the purple text is where the resources aren't approved by Skills Points. So what we're hoping is that it will be really quickly obvious once you open a record to know that those resources are actually Skills Point resources or they're not. So what I'll do is I'll open up my version of the Learning Bank here. As Dave mentioned, Google Chrome is the best browser to use for the Learning Bank. Really the only one that doesn't work is Internet Explorer. I think most people here are reasonably technically savvy. The problem is that when you try and open a Word document in the Learning Bank using Internet Explorer, you'll get a JavaScript error and you won't be able to open the files. You would have to save them. So if you have any staff who come to you with questions about why they can't open files in the Learning Bank, that will most likely be the first thing to try. And that's not restricted to the new resources, it's any resources within the site. So good tip to know. So a lot of the changes that we made in the Learning Bank as part of the launch were to the navigation and also the homepage. So you would have noticed if you've used Aquila in the past that we've now changed the front page significantly, but we've also changed a lot of the things once you get into the Learning Bank, and I'll show you a couple of those today. So the first one is that we've got I suppose a simplified navigation on the left. I actually have a few more settings here than most people do, but everyone will have those top navigation buttons and also a report an issue button. So those issues, when you log a request, will go straight through to the ServiceNow team, and then that will get allocated to our team to resolve any problems. So if you do want to search for resources, once the skills points have released their resources, you'll be able to click on the relevant skills point here in the front page, and that will take you straight into a search pre-populated to just search the Learning Bank collection. So what you would ideally do is search by unit or by course code. You can also, though, search by keywords. You can search by, well, really any term to come up with your search results. But as I said, probably the best way to encourage people to search is the unit code or the course code. We will have records set up at a unit level and a course level. The unit level records will be for assessments, so we'll have one record for assessments and we'll have a second record for the teaching and learning resources for each unit. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. If I go back to the dashboard, the other ways to search, if I scroll down a little, and hopefully there's not too much delay in the screen, but you'll see there's also a search portlet on the home page just below the Learning Bank portlet. And so what this one allows you to do is go directly into search for any skills point approved resources, and that will also include higher education resources probably later this year. So at the moment the higher ed resources are not included in that search. If you wanted to search the old RTO collections, you can actually use that second search option, and that will actually search all of the other collections in the Learning Bank. So it's either just the skills point resources or everything else. And the third option there, which is what Dave mentioned earlier, is you can also go straight into search for the templates using the third link. The third way that you can search the Learning Bank is we have a search option in the left-hand navigation menu. Once you open that, you can actually click on the drop down at the top right, and you can search using any of the advanced searches. And probably the one that I wanted to flag with you was the Learning Bank search by any field, advanced search. Once I open that one up, it gives you all of the different metadata fields that are used within the Learning Bank collection and allows you to narrow your search using one or multiple search options. So you could put in the unit code, you could also put in a course code if you wanted to, training package, topics, skills points. So any combination of search terms will allow you to filter your search, once you click on the search button, to target exactly the resources that you're looking for. Any questions about the searching before I move on? No? Okay. Yes, Kwan?
No, I thought that was very good. Thanks, Tracy.
Ah, good. Okay,
I use it a lot, so I find this useful. Thank you.
Hopefully it's improved, Kwan.
Yeah, I thought the word you know, all our existing resources, when it says not approved by skills point, looks a bit you know, it makes people think you know, have a second thought about, oh, should I be using that?
And I suppose that is what we want them to do in the future, but right now that is a little bit off-putting. We have had a few comments about that. Yeah. And we did previously have that text in red, you may have noticed, and we have toned it down a little, so it's now purple, just so it's not looking quite so confronting when people open up those records. But we did want it to be quite prominent so that once people start looking for the skills points resources, they know instantly what they've got. So, yeah. Hopefully that's going to be okay.
Tracy, Paul Colwell here. Can I jump in with a question?
Sure.
Thanks for this. It's great. I think there's a lot of confusion about how to best search the Learning Bank. I'm sure you're getting a lot of inquiries. On the previous screen, when you had the advanced search, there was a TAFE Digital option. And I'd just like you to explain perhaps what exactly that covers. Is that only since TAFE Digital stood up, or is it the previous toll and other versions and so on?
Yeah, no, so this will only be products that are released by Skills Points. And so the TAFE Digital indicator there is actually whether TAFE Digital Design have been involved in producing the resources. But that's a great question, because I think maybe we do need to clarify that, because TAFE Digital is broader than just the digital design team.
Right. Yeah.
So the purpose of that search, actually John Black asked that we should be able to search for digital resources. And so that was added in as a field, but I think we might change that language. Good pick up. Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? That was really good spotting that in my scrolling, because I probably scrolled a little bit fast. No other questions? All right, what I'd like to do now is just show you what the records will look like in the Learning Bank once we actually have Skills Point approved resources to add. So you'll see here, this is effectively what a search will look like. So we've got the first two records really are the only ones that I wanted to show you. So the first one is a teaching and learning resource record. And so the naming convention that will be used is we'll have the unit code where there is a unit code. We'll then indicate whether it's a teaching and learning record or an assessment record, as you can see the two on that page. And only if the resources are specifically customised for a particular qualification, we will have the qualification code at the end. So if the resources are developed in a way that means that they can be used across multiple courses, then the record name will not have a course attached. Once you go into the record, you will be able to see listed any courses that the Skills Points have approved the resource to be used for the delivery of, but the record name itself won't have a course code, because obviously for some units, the course codes could be very extensive. So having that in the record name will end up making those record names almost meaningless. So, so as I said, it'll be unit code, type of resources, and then course code only where necessary. Below that, you'll have the units. So again, right from the search screen, you'll be able to determine if it's the right unit with the unit name as well as the code. You will know that it's in the Learning Bank collection. So again, I suppose that refers to Kwan's question, that you'll know that this is actually a Learning Bank resource, not an RTO resource. The Skills Point or Skills Points that have approved the resource for delivery for their qualifications, delivery mode and cohort indicators. So they're going to be on that front search screen. So hopefully people will be able to quite quickly determine if that record is the one that they need. Once you go into the record, again, we've worked on changing the display of the records. Oh, we didn't do that. Maybe somebody's moved it. Here we go. And so hopefully it's now easier to read. So what we've done is we've created a table layout with a little bit of, I suppose, separation in the display. So we've got the resource details at the top, which would have the unit and then the qualification or qualifications. So there could be quite a list there for qualifications. Then we've got the delivery details, the delivery mode and cohort that these resources are suitable for, and then each of the learning resources listed below. They should all be grouped, so all of the presentations, you can see in this example, there's 10 presentations, so they'll all be in order in the record, as well as other documentation. And then right down the bottom, you've got the contact details for the particular skills point and product manager that's responsible for this record, as well as the date modified and the date that it's due to be reviewed. Just quickly, I'll show you the same record, but for an assessment, if it'll go there. So the assessment display. So similar, the top section is much the same fields, but if you go down a little bit lower, we have the assessment resources, and then we also have the teacher assessment documentation separated. So the assessment resources are the assessment events, student learner guide, student assessment guide, RPL, whatever is relevant. And then in the teacher assessment documentation, we'll have things like marking guides, mapping documents, and RPL teacher documentation, and the same product information down the bottom. So that's what the records will look like. The only other thing to note probably is there will also be course level records in the Learning Bank. So there will be records for master TASs as well as RPL for courses, course assessment guides, things like that. So if you searched for a course, you would actually get the course documentation in your search results. Whereas if you're searching for a unit, you'll get the unit information, obviously. Sorry, I've covered a lot of things in this. Sorry, I've kind of taken over a little. But the only other thing I did want to just mention is on the front page, I think Lucia is going to talk about the naming conventions in a moment. I just wanted to let you know where they are, and then I'll hand over for questions and then to you, Lucia. So just below the search portlet on your dashboard screen in the Learning Bank, you'll notice that there's some help documents, so some quick reference guides. The second one in there is the training product naming conventions, which Lucia will talk about in a moment, but that's where you find them. Okay, that's me. Any questions about the records, searching, or anything to do with the Learning Bank?
Tracy, Kwan again. If there is, let's say, one of the documents that I download and I want to make a little update to one of the documents and I want to put it back to Learning Bank, so who can contribute and what's the process?
Yeah, good question. So, Kwan, the only people that can contribute physically into the Learning Bank is the Learning Bank team, so the Learning Bank officers. And any requests to change resources in the Learning Bank collection will need to come via the skills point, so via the product manager and product development coordinator. So I would suggest in that instance, Kwan, that effectively that's, I suppose, a continuous improvement request, that would go back via the skills point, and then they would feed that back through to my team to update the Learning Bank. Great question.
Okay. Tracy, I've got a question. It's Susie here, sorry.
Yeah, hi Susie.
How are you? I've been working on the teacher toolkit, and it's not about the Learning Bank, so I'm sorry I'm just taking up this space right now, but are we able to, or are we allowed to add things to Aquello anymore that are not Learning Bank or learning specific?
Yeah, so definitely. So Susie, any collections that you have used in the past are still able to be used. So I suppose that's where this search for training products.
Okay, because I just created it last week. That's why I'm asking.
No, so that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing just to note though is that Karen Pearce is working on creating a staff and student capability collection to combine all of those existing RTO ones.
Okay.
So you might want to get in touch with her at some point and just look at, it's not yet ready, but that's probably where those things need to go in the longer term.
Yeah, after just listening to you today, I thought, oh God, I've done the wrong thing. What do I do?
No.
That's good. All right.
You're fine. If it's capability related, then no, it would be separated. But yeah, for now, keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Paul?
Tracy, thanks. A couple of things that are kind of coming together in my head. The BAU that Kwan just asked about, though, the minor updates that might be iterative, which teachers do all the time if they're having, continuous improvement and many resubmits, for example, on a subject, and they have to go through and be endorsed by the skills point for even small changes, or is there a governance around point in time updates? Yeah,
no, so the governance is it does have to go via the skills point. There is a fast track process for urgent changes to be made to those sorts of resources. So it would though need to go via the product development, the product manager or the product development coordinator.
Okay, product manager can sign off though.
Yes, it doesn't have to go all the way through another whole approval process, no.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, if it's a minor change, yeah.
Sure, and secondly, the earlier for the data, whatever it was called, the data thing that David was referring to, there was some foundation resources that weren't displaying properly and so on. If we use the assessment 3 templates, version 3, are a lot of those bugs resolved, or can we otherwise need to guide people on how to avoid those bugs? Because I've got some team members that are starting to be involved in Top 83 development.
I might just talk that, Tracy. Yep. Thank you, Paul. There are bugs within the TGA database, which is a dependency of the system which we have no control over. Saying that, we are and have been, TAFE New South Wales has been in discussions with TGA about improving the errors within the database. It's historical errors that have sort of carried over in different versions of TGA basically. TGA are working on updating them, but to be realistic, in the next period, and I could put a value of 6 to 12 months on that period, TGA will be continuing to improve their system, as we all are, but there still may at times occur. So I didn't mean to sound like this is extreme, that it's happening all the time, but there are occasions when some of the errors within the TGA database will have an effect on the DataDoc service. So all we're asking is just to, when you download your people download the DataDocs, that they just look at the TGA database and just confirm within, especially the mapping documents, that the performance criteria, the essential elements, the foundation skills, in other words, all the automated data that we've extracted out of TGA and put into that Word document has come over correctly, and you can do that relatively quickly, certainly quicker than, by the way, copying and pasting out of TGA into the document. But if it just be a work process, and anything that's identified and recorded on the what's the ticketing system? Sorry, I've forgotten. Tracy, you said it before.
ServiceNow.
Yeah, ServiceNow. Sorry. If you log it with ServiceNow, so whether it's a database, I mean, the person logging the ticket doesn't need to know really what the issue is, just what it is. That and technically what it is. Like, just for example, the foundation skills for Unit X were incorrect. That type of information that'll help us then keep on working with TGA, and that is an ongoing process. We're working with TGA to improve that service.
Sure. Thank you. And I appreciate finally the use of the older versions for the non-top 83, but from July next year we're all meant to be using the version 3. My advice to anyone who asks me would be to jump to version 3 now, to not have to sort of align them later. Would that
would be good advice. That would be good advice, and I might let Lucia speak to it. But when Lucia comes back again, but that would really depend on what stage you're at. Like if you're 95% through the development, well then I'm not saying don't do it, but it would be a pretty big call to do that. Yeah. But I'm not saying there would be reasons why that would be a good call. For example, if you're teaching out something or a range of other reasons.
Thanks.
So just finally to wrap up from me, thank you everybody for your time and your interest. If you have, I suppose, people within TAFE Digital that are going to be supporting teachers and head teachers to implement the Learning Bank, the Learning Bank team would be really happy to present a session just on Learning Bank with your teams and run through, answer questions and provide more information if that's helpful to you. Thank you. I'll hand back to Lucia.
Great, thanks Tracy. Right, so all right, so just covering off on the file names and conventions. So what we've done is we've actually expanded the training product name convention that existed before, but we've added all the new templates within, and we've also considered the end-to-end process, so of development of course, not just assessment. So within that document, we've added in some publishing, teaching materials, learning and assessment resources. There's information on the TAS and how to save it, and it's recommended that you use this with the version 3 templates in saving it. And that would also apply to the Learning Bank. So we're looking for consistency throughout within the Learning Bank and all the filing documentation. So just to give you a bit of a sense of what that is, this is the guideline convention. So that's also available in the Learning Bank, as Tracy noted, and it's also available in for you to download it to use with the assessment. So there are information and the different codes and the way that you would name a file. The assessment templates are listed below. So these are the new version 3 templates with the codes and the filing names. We've added information, as I said, about the TAS and how you should file that. Clustered assessments and resources, how they would be filed. Version control. So within our assessments, there is on the second page a version control that you would update, but in some cases, depending on the documentation, for example, the TAS will be in your footer, so there's information about that. Information on footers and what should be supplied there, and resource IDs, the different skill points and their abbreviation codes. So we are adding to this document as time goes by, depending on the different types of products. And then to our last slide, which is continuous improvement. So in developing the version 3 templates, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, we gathered quite a bit of feedback. What we did was that with the feedback, we incorporated what we felt needed to be incorporated for this round. And it was things around changing words to better address compliance requirements. We also added additional instructions around better usability for a trainer and assessor in developing a document. We looked around the version control and the document filing and standardising that, and hence then the training product document was expanded to incorporate that. We also received feedback that we felt was more aligned to, something that we would implement in the future. It will be nice to have down the track, and to be reconsidered. And as David has mentioned, also possibly digitizing these templates further. So in our review and monitor cycle, we're looking at the point now where we're at is in testing the tool, and within the next 6 to 12 months, gathering some feedback once it's been tested, it's been put out there, and having a look at how that process has gone. And in that, possible 6 to 12 months, reviewing them and starting to incorporate some of the other areas that we couldn't incorporate in this first round and put in the second round. We do have an email address at the bottom where while you're using it and testing it, if there's any feedback that you'd like to provide, feel free to send us some feedback, and we'll definitely have a look at that in the future. Thank you all for your attendance, and I hope it was really worthwhile. We'll open it up to question now if you have any questions on anything that we presented. Or we may have asked all the questions already.